I am a Filipino robot. I'm here to create creativity. I'm here. Do great. Create creative. Hey, I'll be the first to tell you, I had a privileged upbringing. My family was happy. They left the country that they were in to make some sacrifices for me and my sister. They left some pretty dire places, especially my mom. And when they got together, they both made a pact that their children would not have to go through what they did. We had such a great upbringing. Like, I loved my childhood. And one of the biggest memories that I can remember was my dad would come home and he would still be wearing his work clothes. And I remember one particular instance. His work clothes consisted of like these really cool like 70s slacks, like these like bell bottom type of things. And then he would be wearing like these short sleeve button down shirts with like a huge ass tie, right? And so when I'm thinking about this, I remember he was wearing this huge tie and it had like the Jaws movie on it. And like by Jaws movie, like there was a woman swimming at the top of the ocean, and you could see this shark like coming up, like ready to pounce on this lady. Like, why don't we have those anymore? Right? Why don't we have Stranger Things ties? Wasn't abnormal for dad to come home. He'd get a drink of water. He would go to the back of the house where we had this tiny yard, and he would proceed to water every one of his amazing plants and bushes and trees. And I remember his most favorite tree was this mango tree. And it was a tiny little mango tree that was growing. And he really did take care of it. Um, he nurtured it 24/7, 7 days a week. So I not only wanted to be with my dad and followed him to the back, but also I couldn't wait for him to put the hose down, the water hose that he used to water the flowers, and I would go to this, like, sandy, grassy part of the backyard, and I would carve out, like, these areas for, like, rivers to flow and movement to happen and these little cities that I would create, and then I'd put the hose in the middle of the city, and it would create, like, this huge river and lake, and what I would do is I would go and take the leaves from the ground and I would just have them cruise down the river. And I just remember thinking how cool it was to be going through the middle of the city on these little boats. And I'd put on some days I'd try to catch these baby lizards, or I'd put ants, or I'd put ant lions on it. And I just watched as these cities came to life. I remember having this kind of creative connection with everything. I remember we would go out on pasyal. Pasyal is like the Filipino term for, I don't know, like getting out of the house or staycation or something like that. And we'd all like cram into our brown Chrysler minivan. And I remember just kind of like tilting my head as we drive on Pasyal and looking up at the clouds, looking at the faces of things that would begin to form. I remember seeing dragons and birds and lizards and people. And I just imagined what it would be like to have that kind of um, life where I'm up in the clouds looking at things, you know? It was a part of being a kid for me to be creative like that. Fast forward to 20, 25 years later, and I'm in my condo by myself, like being completely unable to write any kind of paper. I was in a doctoral program for education, higher education, and I just remember my looking at my the paper that was due, and I had no creativity in it. At what point did we see creativity only as a soft skill? Or at what point did we see creativity only for the gifted, only for the singer-songwriter, only for the poet, only for the artist? At what point did we see that? Or at what point or at what age did we see creativity as only for the young? But even with all of these things that we've done to either suppress our creativity or let go of it, maybe creativity has been with us all along and it's just lying dormant. Creativity is something that I truly, truly, truly believe is your birthright. And if there's anything that I want you to hear or take in from any of these videos that I'm putting out there, it's that creativity is our birthright. Now, if that's the only thing that you hear from my YouTube series and my YouTube videos, please like, subscribe, hit notification bells, and maybe give a comment on creativity below, and come back anytime, okay? So if creativity is in fact our birthright, then from the second we step onto this earth, we can use it to solve problems. We can use it to connect with others, and we can use it to express ourselves. And the result of that, heightened fulfillment, heightened joy, a change in your perspective, a change in being able to see things from multiple perspectives, and the ability to use creativity in your everyday life. When it comes to defining creativity, whether that be for a TEDx client, or whether it be for my online community, the Underground, or whether it be for my signature course, the Joy Revolution, they all come from the same definition of creativity, which is this. Creativity is the process of harnessing imagination and original thinking to generate new ideas, solutions, and expressions that foster personal growth, social change, and collective well-being. So this first one is huge, and that's creating without judgment. I'm so this first one is huge, and it's about creating with. So the first thing when it comes to reactivating your creativity is a big one, and in fact, I've recorded 5 times because I want this to be perfect, and I realize that I'm doing the thing that I'm asking you to not do, and that's create without judgment. I don't remember the point in my life in which I was just building whatever I wanted and it was cool. I just stacking up Legos, not caring what people thought about it. But here I am creating this YouTube video, wanting to come off like I know my shit, wanting to come off like I've got all this stuff about creativity. And I'm going to do the same thing that I'm advising you to do. I'm going to set up intentional time for me to create without judgment, me to just throw paint up against the wall, metaphorical paint, for me to just pick up my guitar and just mess around with it, not needing to have a song finished. What can you do? What is the space that you can create, the mental space and the physical space that you can create to create without judgment? That's number one. So here's the second way to reactivate your creativity, and it's this: to surround yourself with people, places, and things that inspire you. So about 20 years ago, I was writing the lyrics to an album that my band was about to record. It had taken me over 18 months to like at least create a dent in those lyrics for those songs. And it was recording time and I needed to get inspired and write. Now, I don't want to blame anything on anyone, but I lived in an apartment complex with a lot of folks that were in college, and boy, did they throw some epic parties. And yet, when they were throwing those epic parties, I couldn't like, there was this ballad called These Anniversaries, and I couldn't get it down because it was just so loud. And what ended up happening was I left. I was living in Atlanta at the time. I left. I went down to my buddy's place in Jacksonville. I walked on the beach every morning. I thought about these anniversaries, the songs, and what it meant. And I finished the rest of the album in, I think, 5 to 6 days. It allowed me to get out of the physical place that I thought was not inspiring me, and I brought it to a place that I thought it could. I could not have any excuses anymore for not writing an album because of these college parties. So moving on to the third way to reactivate your creativity, it's simply to be around other creatives, share and collaborate. Obviously, being a part of a band was a huge thing for years. We'd have our guitarist play a lick that he's been working on. Our bassist PJ was out of control and he could create these killer bass lines. Then Baby J, our drummer, would go and create a drum sequence for us, and then I would add lyrics to it. That is a huge thing in terms of being in a band, but also at the same time, if you're a TEDx speaker, right? What I do with my TEDx speakers is I'll often bring them into a TEDx circle where each of them can share where they're at. And the result of the circle isn't for people to steal each other's works. It's just to be around other creatives doing TEDx things that can inspire another person to move forward with their TEDx. The reason why I created the online community, the Underground, is to have a space to collaborate and share. Now, the fourth way to reactivate your creativity is to practice mindfulness. Yes, we're talking about woo-woo. No, we're not talking about woo-woo this time. Okay, woo-woo. Talking about woo-woo. But here's the thing about mindfulness and why it's so important when it comes to you being creative. Mindfulness can tone down that voice in your head, that inner critic, that gremlin who stops you from really going out and putting out creative things in the world. And so as you practice mindfulness, you're going to see your creativity blossoming. You're not judging yourself anymore. So before I get to the last point when it comes to creativity, I want you to write in the comments below, what are things that you do to reactivate your creativity? So with all of that said, let's get back to the final way to reactivate your creativity, which is this: revisit your childhood play. Go back to the times that you felt completely unbridled as a kid and the curiosity that you had, the flow that you got into, the elation and joy that you felt creating all those things. You know what? Let's do this. Okay. Why don't we revisit childhood play together? Oh, yeah. This is how all the sausage is made, people. Why don't we try this out for size? The exact same path that my dad would take when he got home, in his tie, in his short sleeve button down. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see if we can initiate childhood play. Let's see what we can do today. Let's see how creative we can get. There's the baby lizards. Here we go. Just like when Dad came home. Just like when he came home from work. This is the patchy area, the sand. Let's create something really cool. Shall we? Now I just wanted to throw this out to you. That's the mango tree that Dad used to water. That's the mango tree that Dad used to water. And right when he let go of his hose, I got to create the world. There's the river, the streams, the leaves. Let's see if we can get it to flow. The leaves. With all of that said, I just wanted to give you the heads up that creativity never left you. And in many ways, shapes, and forms, it's still here. Just like the mango tree and my little river, my little ecosystem. So I hope you got something out of this. Continue to dig deep, continue to create, and I'll see you in the underground. Bye.